Good morning, everyone. I know it took us a bit to get out of Nagaroth there, but in my defense, inciting a slave revolt and ensuring everyone was on board took a fair bit of planning and effort. Thankfully, it seems we've run into the path of some Asur dragon ships, so we have a noble set of guides to get us to the glorious port city of Lothern. It is unfortunate that our sudden protectors keep mouthing off about having to babysit lesser races, but they don't know I understand Eltherin and they have bolt throwers, so we'll allow them to indulge in their typical arrogant racism. However, while we're adrift the great ocean, I thought now would be a suitable time as any to tell you about a champion among the High Elves. One who, quite unusual for his race, has a kind soul, and is famous among many lands for his down-to-earth attitude and judging others based on their actions rather than the chance of their birth. Some rumors even suggest he has a number of true friends among the Dawi, which is practically a sin in elven culture. One who values friendship and loyalty above the petty politics and scheming that so many high-born Asur revel in. Of course, the brave soul I wish to tell you about is none other than the current captain of the White Lions, Corhill. A bit over 2 centuries ago, there was a young elf in the lands of Crace who set out on an important mission. His kingdom had been suffering at the hands of a horrific monstrosity that bore the name of Charondas. Once it had been a fierce and deadly white lion, but the beast had lurked too long among the heights of the Unuli Mountains, and the great cat had mutated into something far worse. Swollen with the power of chaos and its hide warped into a thick armor, the blood-starved creature descended upon the elves of Crace and brought death to them. Dozens of the most skilled and practiced Cracian hunters went out to pursue Charondas, but none returned, and the great lion grew bolder with each passing day. But the young elf Corhill was undeterred by the constant failures of his kin, and went out alone to confront the horrid beast. It was easy to track, as Charondas had left a trail of mauled corpses in his rampage from those who tried to confront him. When Corhill finally caught up with the mutated lion, the creature was insane with rage, and possessed a savagery that would make even the fiercest warriors of the Dark Gods seem meek in comparison. The young hunter sprang into action, and swung his ancestral axe with prodigious might. But no matter how many blows he struck upon Charondas, the beast's magical hide simply deflected each attack. Still, Corhill would not relent, ducking and rolling with incredible grace to avoid the mutated claws and dripping fangs that missed him by a hair's breadth each time. He realized that his hunter's axe, while able to cleave a man in half with a single blow, would never be able to slice through the chaos-empowered armor protecting his quarry. So, in a move that would be seen as suicidal by all but the most insane, the young elf changed his tactics and tossed aside his axe and engaged Charondas once more with only his bare hands. He collided with the monster time and again, carefully avoiding the white lion's death-dealing strikes while looking for the perfect opportunity. Finally, the window presented itself, and without hesitation, Corhill launched himself forward and slammed into the monster with all his strength. In a remarkably un-elven display of raw physical might, he wrestled the unbalanced creature to the ground, and managed to wrap his arms around its throat, heaving with everything he had. The mutated lion thrashed around as it attempted to free itself and steal in a fresh breath, but the young hunter refused to relent and held his iron grip. After a frantic struggle, the great cat finally ceased fighting and shuddered one last time. Charondas had been slain. For this remarkable display of skill and strength, Corhill was immediately offered a position among the White Lions, the noble bodyguard of the Phoenix King himself. He eagerly accepted, being one of only 3 elves in the long history of Ulthuan to ever be extended this offer at less than 50 summers. In the decades that followed, this young elf would grow into a grizzled veteran after having proven himself time and time again against assassins and the horrifying monsters of the Unuli. However, his life would be changed notably once more when the Witch King Malekith unleashed his legions upon the shores of Ulthuan during the Great War against Chaos. During the famous struggle known as the Battle of Finneval Plain, Corhil and all of his comrades watched in horror as their captain was slain in single combat by Malekith's personal champion at the time, Urien Poisonblade. While the deadly warrior of the Druchii was slain that day by Prince Tyrion, and the Asur managed to narrowly claim victory, the White Lions were still left with the task to convene in the aftermath and select one among their number to take up the role as captain. After a small bit of deliberation, a unanimous vote chose Corhil to be elected as the new captain of the White Lions. Phoenix King Finnebar was pleased with this choice and granted his blessing, marking a somber promotion for the Cracian. The elven warrior found his skills put to the test almost immediately. As a mere 5 years after Malekith's defeat at Finneval Plain, a coterie of Cainite assassins led by Glorreer Duskblade attempted to murder the Phoenix King at his palace in Lothern. The attack would have certainly succeeded, had Corhil not ordered his White Lions to shield Finnebar with their very bodies, so that every attack either harmlessly deflected from their lion pelts or claimed the acceptable loss of one of the guards. After the surprise of their ferocious ambush was spent, Corhil launched into action and butchered his way through the assassins. Realizing their ploy had failed, the Dark Elves attempted to flee from the oncoming warriors. A running battle broke out across the roofs of Lothern itself, as Cainite assassins and White Lions fought lightning-fast duels amidst impressive leaps. The Druchii thought themselves beyond the capabilities of the great axe-wielding hunters, but soon found their confidence shattered, as each of them were run down and slain one by one. Glorreer Duskblade himself was the last standing, finally turning to face the wrath of Corhil as the captain of the White Lions bore down upon him. He was a master swordsman among the Cainite assassins, one of the deadliest in his organization. Yet for all his agility and skill, Corhil fought with a grace that shamed his comrades, and decapitated Glorreer with one well-placed blow. The Cainite assassin's headless body has sat in a gibbet at the bottom of the glittering tower ever since. The most recent great endeavor of Finnebar's personal captain is when the White Lions saved the Phoenix King from the claws of a mighty manticore. During the Battle of Tor Aker, the Dreadlord Morik the Black charged in to slay Finnebar upon a frenzied manticore hell-bent on slaughter. Corhil intercepted the beast, putting himself between it and the Phoenix King, even as it bore down upon them. The captain of the White Lions had no regard for his own safety and stood his ground, carefully preparing his twin axes to swing as monstrous claws and a venomous tail came at him. Corhil leapt forward into the blow, swinging Chayal in a brutal arc that with one swing disemboweled the manticore even as it mauled him. The deadly monster screamed in agony before collapsing dead, even as the remainder of the White Lions set upon its now stranded rider to hack him into pieces. Corhil went unconscious, as blood loss and the venom unleashed by his foe overtook him, but his role had been fulfilled once more. Thankfully, the captain of the White Lions is made from stern stock and recovered quickly, presented with a gem-encrusted belt by the Phoenix King for this act of bravery. Since those days, he has journeyed to many battlefields throughout the world, his honest demeanor and frank way of speaking earning him many friends among the lords of Ulthuan, and even with the heroes of other races. Corhil rewards those who show him kindness and friendship, with the same loyalty he offers to the Phoenix King, often requesting leave from Finnebar to ride to the aid of his allies. A surprising amount of dwarfs, Bretonnians, Asur, Azrai, and men of the Empire have been in the mire of desperate battles, only to see a White Lion chariot come smashing through their enemies and leading a small army of elves, bearing the mighty form of Corhil as he rides to the aid of his friends once more. That wraps up the awesome history of the Captain of the White Lions. So let's talk about how one might acquire him in campaign. I think ultimately the most thematic thing would be a mission to save Finnabar himself in a battle, or perhaps a mission where you must slay some assassins who intend on going after the Phoenix King. Alternatively, he could be just tied to earning enough influence, or perhaps spending a certain amount of influence. That way you attract the Phoenix King's attention to get Corhill assigned to you. When it comes to fighting upon the battlefield, Corhill is a rather straightforward character, as he of course operates as an extremely skilled bodyguard hero. He should of course have the obvious White Lion abilities, like having woodsman, martial prowess, extremely high missile resistance, and solid leadership. Then he should also come standard with the Guardian passive, and have the ability to mount a White Lion chariot just like he does in Tabletop. When it comes to items, Corhill comes packing with two that should really help him stand out from the other Asur lords and heroes. First up is the magical weapon passed down to each captain of the White Lions, the double-headed axe known as Chile. This weapon hits like an absolute truck, but remains light as a feather, balanced so well that the mighty Corhill is able to wield it single-handed with ease. The current captain actually chooses to dual-wield axes, as he carries his own mighty axe in his offhand, that is an heirloom of his family, fighting with two concerningly large weapons capable of smashing through armor. I would say his magical weapon Chile could be well represented with an active ability that when used grants the captain of the White Lions a large increase to his melee attack, armor-piercing damage, and maybe even give him a bit of anti-infantry, as he just brutalizes any who might dare assault his charge. The weapon did grant the killing blow rule in Tabletop, which is where I'm pulling that anti-infantry from, by the way. His other item is technically a talisman, the Pelt of Charondis, that he wears across his shoulders. As we discussed, the hide of this mutated White Lion was near impenetrable to damage, and it extends this same protection now to Corhill. It should provide him with either an active or passive buff that increases his physical resistance and maybe even his missile resistance. Also, Corhill should be immune to poison, which would be a really cool passive or ability to see introduced to the game. There are actually a small number of other characters in Warhammer Fantasy who possess a passive ability that makes them immune to poison, such as Tehinan. So it'd be really nice to see this added as part of like his DLC-ness that maybe could be spread to other characters. Beyond all that, Corhill should just be a really solid brawler who excels at killing enemy characters and elites, so he should probably have lower splash attack numbers so he hits less entities, which would allow him to really punish heavily armored elite troops, characters, and monsters that he can manage to get close to. On to the weaknesses section. The biggest thing that Corhill has as a flaw is that he doesn't actually have anything to guard him from magical damage. He should probably have a pretty good armor save, but he doesn't have anything crazy in that department. So a lot of spells like Spirit Leech and Fireball can actually be quite a threat to him, and anything that has magical damage in close combat or with shooting would just slice right through his Pelt of Charondis buff, because it doesn't protect from magic. It very explicitly says that. Beyond that, of course, he'll be a much more focused but limited hero than the other High Elf options, as he can't shoot like the Handmaiden, or cast magic like wizards, or ride a flying mount like the High Elf Noble can. Which those are some pretty notable downsides, but at least to kind of offset that, Corhill can bring a White Lion chariot to bear, which is awesome because he's the only hero that would be able to do that, but at the same time, a White Lion chariot would probably be really expensive, even compared to a Noble on an Ithilmil chariot. So, there are some trade-offs there. Heading over to the campaign map, I can foresee some really interesting and cool options to help Corhill be worthy of the Hero of Legend title. So when it comes to his starting trait and initial abilities and stuff, I would have the White Lion Captain's big initial gimmick be for him to notably lower enemy agent success chance, and have a huge chance of causing enemy agents to be wounded. So essentially, he should either start with, or quickly have access to, a trait or skill that basically makes enemy heroes that attempt actions against the army Corhill's in to have like a 50% chance to be wounded by him and a lower success chance. This would actually really give him that awesome feel of not only protecting your lord and other heroes from assassins, but then chasing after them to personally kick their asses. For his own agent actions, I imagine he wouldn't be the most exciting. He'd probably be fairly similar to other bodyguard heroes. So he'd have like train units, assault garrisons, assassination, etc. Perhaps to spice things up a bit, he could get access to a unique skill around level 5 or 10 that allows him to grant a much larger line of sight and increased ambush defense chance on the campaign map, as Cracians are expert hunters well accustomed to looking for potential threats. Corhill should of course come with unique skills that allow him to grant faction-wide buffs to all White Lions, War Lions, and White Lion Chariot units, which I will hereby refer to as Cracian units to save, talking a lot. In addition, I think he should have a later level skill, say around level 20 or 25, that when purchased upgrades Corhill and all Cracian units, where applicable, to have their martial prowess upgraded instead to martial mastery, as they are the best of the Phoenix King's guard, but just for his army, to, not totally break the game. Another skill I could see Corhill having unique access to is something that we could call, Finnebar's Champion, which could increase the rate at which the player gets Court of the Phoenix King dilemmas, or perhaps it allows Corhill to passively generate like 10 influence every turn, as he does have the Phoenix King's ear. I'd also like to see him have a set of skills that leans on his friendships with the heroes of other races. Perhaps he could have one for each order race that grants a diplomacy bonus with that race and gives a slight other buff. So for instance, one could be called Dwarf Friend, that grants plus 10 or plus 20 diplomacy with the Dawi factions, and also lowers construction cost in the local region of Corhill. Or maybe one that's Ally to Man, which might grant diplomacy with the human nations in addition to increased revenue from trade or something. I'd like at least to see one for humans, dwarves, and high elves. If you wanted to include lizardmen and wood elves in that, go for it, but, whatever. Finally, at a respectable level, say between level 15 and level 25, Corhill should of course unlock the legendary Guardian idea that we discussed in the last Hero of Legend video. So either convert his physical resistance buff from Guardian into a much higher physical resistance buff, or just keep it as the same number, but now it's just a flat ward save. I love this idea for god tier bodyguard named characters. Definitely don't want to spread it outside of those guys. Finally, when it comes to his appearance, Corhill is a character blessed with not only excellent artwork, but also an absolutely beautiful tabletop model. So just focus on bringing this badass to life, and we're all set. That wraps up the High Elf portion of the Heroes of Legend series. What's that? Why didn't I talk about Cara Dryon, the captain of the Phoenix Guard? Well, I'll be honest. I think he's more legendary lord material based on the way that Total War Warhammer tends to be organized. A halberd-wielding badass who just has a repulsive amount of defensive attributes and he can be mounted on a Frost Phoenix? Ugh. That just sounds horribly toxic to be a hero, in my opinion. I think for most people's sanity, to keep up the flavor of having a monstrous mount, and also to allow him to be as powerful as he should be, I think Cara Dryon is much better off as a legendary lord. Though he is supposed to be completely silent and only speak a word upon his death to strike down his pursuers, so I'm not exactly sure how Cara Dryon would work as a character. Perhaps you could just not have a voice actor for him and really cut down on the voice acting budget? I mean, it's kind of a funny idea. You go into, a quest battle for one of Cara Dryon's items and there's just no speech. It's just him standing there menacingly. Anyway. I also didn't talk about the other famous heroes of the Asur, such as Tyrion's squire Eldrya from Tiranoc, Belinar of Hoeth, or Yastrana of Avalorn, as I think those characters are represented just fine by generic heroes and lords, or like an agent or a follower rather that you would attach onto a character. My first and foremost goal is to get all of the actually playable characters from at least 8th edition into the actual Total Warhammer game. That being said, do you think that that's dumb, or do you think I'm wrong and that Corhill is not the shoo-in character for the High Elves? Who would you have selected instead, and why them over the Captain of the White Lions? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. Now then, I see a concerning storm approaching us. Hopefully our voyage to Lothern isn't about to be rudely sent off course, but we'll have to see. Also, I do want to extend a quick serious thank you to all of my patrons over on Patreon. That's something I definitely need to get back into the practice of doing on a very regular basis. So here are all the names of the people who have very generously been supporting me. Many of these people for quite a long time now when I actually bothered to think about it. And I do, of course, want to give a special shout out to a handful of folks who really go out of their way to be supportive. Charles Bode, Jeffrey Ramers, Sign of the Emperor, Wendell Short Eyes, Eric, and Higgins the Seagull. Thank you guys for your very generous support. Anyway, see you guys next time.